You may know the best-selling book, Tuesdays with Morrie. In it, Mitch Albom interviews his teacher who is in the process of dying, his teacher Morrie. And he explains, everyone knows they're going to die, but no one believes it. If we did, we would do things differently. So we kid ourselves about death, he says, but there's a better approach. To know that you're going to die and to be prepared for it at any time. That way, you can actually be involved in your life while you're living. So he suggests that we continually ask ourselves each day these questions. Is today the day? Am I ready? Am I doing all I need to do? Am I being the person I want to be in the world? The writer E.B. White, and we all know E.B. White because he was the writer of Charlotte's Web. Who knows Charlotte's Web? I want to see some of the kids raise their hands here because we all know that story, and Stuart Little and some other great things. But E.B. White watched his wife, Catherine, planning the planting of bulbs in her garden in the last autumn of her life. And later he wrote this. There was something comical yet touching in her bedraggled appearance. The small, hunched-over figure, her studied absorption in the implausible notion that there would be yet another spring. Oblivious to the ending of her own days, which she knew perfectly well was near at hand. Sitting there with her detailed chart under those dark skies in dying October, calmly plotting the resurrection. Plotting the resurrection. What is resurrection but death turning into new life? Imagine your love and influence rising and blooming into beautiful gifts year after year, long after you're gone. I can remember sitting with Penny McElroy and her daughter, Donna, who lit our chalice this morning, because Penny was plotting the resurrection in this way. She had made All Souls the beneficiary of a lead trust, so that we were able to establish a fund to endow an internship to train Unitarian Universalist ministers into perpetuity. Have you ever seen the swirling seeds that fall from a tall maple tree? You know, they fall in the spring, I think, or in the fall, rather. That's why they call it fall, right? Because they're small. But just like a mighty maple tree, her faith in our future spins and floats and is carried by the wind like miniature helicopters landing over great distances, planting ministers who inspire new ministers and ministries all across the land. Can you imagine the impact of that decision through the generations? And we all get to take a part in it, as we are a learning and teaching congregation who get to benefit from these interns as we teach them and they go forth from here. I remember sitting with Bisser Barnett, who had stories of being a child in one of those iron lung machines because she had contracted polio as a kid. She plotted the resurrection by giving All Souls the funds to establish the Jenkins Lloyd Jones Press. And then this flower bloomed, and then this flower popped up, and then this flower, and the next one, and the next one. And thanks to her faith in our free religion and in this church, on the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, the Jenkins Lloyd Jones Press published what is considered the foremost account by many people of some of the incredible individuals and families who built and rebuilt Greenwood before and after the massacre. If you haven't read this book, The Victory on Greenwood by Carlos Moreno, I highly recommend it. An amazing story of some of the best Tulsans who have ever lived. And she showed us that seeds can be planted and can grow out of the ashes of destruction. I can remember walking up crumbling concrete steps with this wobbly, rusted banister and entering the broken screen door that slammed loudly behind me to visit Virginia Day, who was busy plotting the resurrection. She made a gift while she was alive to establish the day communications program of All Souls, which bought us the cameras and the equipment to broadcast our services on the internet. And then she put the church in her will so that the programs would grow for generations to come. If you're watching online, or if you watched online during the pandemic, or you have ever watched an All Souls sermon on YouTube, you have Virginia Day to thank. But I want you to know this about Orville and Virginia Day. Their son Barry tragically died of HIV/AIDS back in the 90s. She deeply appreciated the way that All Souls consistently took a religious stance on behalf of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people in this community. This was long before almost anyone else, certainly in the religious world, was standing up and giving a moral voice for people who love differently. And she felt that our messages needed to land and be heard beyond our walls to help shape the public discourse on issues that matter in our times. Before we had marriage equality here in the United States, a sermon that I delivered on gay marriage from this pulpit went viral online, thanks to the plotting and the planting of Virginia Day. Reverend Suzanne Meyer, who many say may have been the best preacher who has ever delivered a sermon from this pulpit. She only served our church for about 2 years, but she was so impressed by our children and youth choir program and the impact that she saw that it was having on children and youth that she left everything she had when she died to the All Souls Children and Youth Choir program. Now, these are just a few of the mighty cloud of witnesses who have loved this church before some of us were even born. And they are loving us still because they planted bulbs that bloom and make our life right now more livable and more lovable. They planted trees under whose shade we get to sit to avoid some of the scorching heat of our culture in times like these, and trees that help protect us from the rain during our own times of life's challenges. But not just for us, but forever. They planted bulbs forever. As Anitra and I are working on redrafting our wills, we are plotting the resurrection, planting some bulbs in the free and fertile soil of All Souls. That's part of our plot. Now, if you belong to this congregation, I invite you to belong to its future. Just imagine your love for this place and its people can live on forever into perpetuity. That money never to be spent, but just the interest going on to do great things. Maury asks, is today the day? Are you ready? How might you and All Souls plot the resurrection? It is not just their heritage and legacy we celebrate each year. It is yours too. I love you. Amen.
What a new day. is a new day, and love of life is hope for me. It is a beautiful song, and this morning I need a little help from these gentlemen up here because I have something to show you. It's okay. This dress belonged to one of my grandmothers. And so I'm guessing it was made around 1950, which makes the dress about 70 years old. It's in very good shape, which indicates that nylon lasts a long time. She didn't actually leave it for me. Her name was Rita, and I found it in my mother's closet. And I've kept it as a way to honor an ancestor and a way to remember an ancestor. I'm old enough now, I'm about to turn 60 next week. I'm old enough now to feel that death is closer and that my time on this earth is limited. So thank you, Rita. When I think about this dress now, I think that this dress and then my mother and then me and then my daughter and my granddaughter tangibly connects 5 generations, very concretely. As Marlin has said already this morning, it's only when we accept that endings are real that we can think about what we want to leave behind. But just because that's obvious doesn't mean it's easy. And I've been feeling the challenges of facing endings keenly these past months because I've been struggling, honestly, with accepting my own ending here at All Souls. But with encouragement from all of you and all of you, the people I work with, I'm finding the strength to face this ending and taking time to consider what I want to leave behind. The manner and style in which we close out our ministry will be very similar to the way in which we will die, writes Reverend Roy Oswald, continuing, in death and in grief, we do not so much need protection from painful experience as we need the boldness to face it. In death and in grief, we're all familiar with those, and in all kinds of leaving a job, leaving home for school, leaving a relationship, leaving a city, leaving a country, and when we are the ones being left behind by a lover, by losing a job, a divorce, a change in leadership, we do not so much need protection from painful experience as we need the boldness to face it. When we dare to face our endings, we can actually ask ourselves, what will they remember me for? What do I want to leave behind? I imagine many of you are already asking yourself these questions in your own lives. Remember, Deanna Tyrrell and I are the same age, pretty much exactly, and we told each other a couple of years ago that we would get our end-of-life paperwork in order for our 60th birthdays. I didn't check in with her before this Sunday to see how she's doing. I still have a little work to do. That's one really beautiful, powerful gift we can leave our loved ones. We can leave them clear instructions about the medical care we want and we don't want to receive. We can leave them clear instructions about who we trust to manage our finances and our health care, appointing people we trust as our proxies when we can no longer make our own decisions. We can leave instructions about our memorial service, what music and poetry we want read, and we have a form here at All Souls for you to fill out. We can leave clear instructions about what we want others to do with our body, and we can leave a will. There is a table in the foyer this morning, so I hope you'll stop on your way out to see what All Souls offers and to start those conversations in your own life. I strongly encourage you, if you're feeling bold enough after this morning's service, or sometime this week, and I didn't say old enough, I said bold enough, because there's never been a better time than this, than the present. And I hope you'll reach out to Reverend Randy Lewis, who's passionate about these issues and is eager to walk with you as you make these end-of-life decisions. Now, my mother, she left a file folder in her desk drawer with the words, "My death," marked in red ink. Thank you, Mom. I also found this box on her desk. This is good for the young people. People used to keep things in boxes on little index cards, and it's organized alphabetically. And on each card is the name of an organization that she donated money to over the years. So I'm just going to read you the A's. AARP, ACLU, All Souls Unitarian Church Tulsa, Alzheimer's Association, American Cancer Society, American Red Cross, Amnesty International, American Veterans Association, Association Famille de Compagnons de la Libération, the A's. I haven't been able to let go of this box yet because it's evidence of her values. Not only did my mother give to causes she believed in, she left behind evidence for us of the values that continue to inspire those of us she left behind. Not only does her love live on in us, but her values live on through her giving. I think Florence understood what Shannon was talking about earlier, that she understood that she had been climbing up and sitting under and pruning trees all her life, trees that other people had planted. Just as we are sitting in a church that people before us imagined, organized, discussed, supported, built, and sustained for over a century. Now, not all of you may have known before this morning that I'm moving to the Pacific Northwest this summer and leaving All Souls to live closer to family. And some of you have already told me that the way you heard this news or found out felt disappointing or even hurtful. So please hear me now and know that choosing to leave All Souls has been an extremely difficult decision to make. And then, even after the decision was made, it's been difficult for me to accept it and stick with it, to really let go. Having Reverend Lewis with us has not only made it easier for me, but his presence, and it has made it easier, but his presence has also made it possible for me to lead our stewardship efforts this year. And so on this Heritage Sunday, 13 years after joining the ministry team and 4 years after my installation by you in this sanctuary, I'm hoping publicly that part of my legacy will be an understanding that we love and give today for a future world we won't see, which is precisely how we and our love outlasts death and lives on. Now, those are beautiful words. They sound good. They feel good. But being able to share those words with y'all this morning required some deep internal work on my part. I'm going to tell you what I mean, because in fact, just a few weeks ago, I might have enjoyed arguing about what I just said, as I was feeling sort of the opposite. I was wrestling, honestly, with why I was still working so hard, knowing I was leaving, knowing I wouldn't be part of what I was working for, of the future I was helping to build. I was feeling, honestly, sort of sorry for myself. And I shared some of what I was feeling with Shannon Boston, our Executive Director of Religious Education, in our weekly meeting. We have a weekly meeting on Tuesdays. And I said, why am I still working so hard when I won't be part of the new teams we're pulling together? I was kind of whining, I admit. Please share some of your wisdom with me, I pleaded to Miss Shannon. And Shannon took a deep breath and then offered with a hint of a smile, that's what we're all doing, Barbara. We're all working with and giving to the church so it will be here long after we're gone. And of course, she's right and wise and loving, but it wasn't easy for me to hear, not at first. I, of course, wanted her to tell me that I mattered, that I would be missed. I, me. Thank you for laughing with me. It's so easy to get stuck in thinking that things are all about me. or us. But when we belong to and give to All Souls, it's precisely because it's more than about just us. This community is about embodying the world as we hope and dream and pray it will one day become. It's about learning and letting go, healing and growing more whole. It's about trust and embracing transformation. Here, we release our fears and we face our endings and we plan for the resurrection. We are a community and we are an institution whose core value is love beyond belief. And we are living in a time in history when trust in institutions is very low and when trust in institutions is really needed. And because our church is already an embodiment of what Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams called, I love this quote, so listen carefully, a training ground for the skills that are required for viable social existence in a democracy, and a means for the institutionalizing of gradual revolution. Because that's who and what we are, this is an institution that needs to stay healthy and grow even stronger. Together, here, we practice what Adams called the indispensable discipline of social responsibility. If those words make your spine tingle the way they do mine, I encourage you to read Adams' essay called The Indispensable Discipline of Social Responsibility, Voluntary Associations. We, you and I, did not choose who we were born to, into what family, where we were born, but we freely choose to assemble here, continuing a tradition our religious ancestors fought for, the right for religion to be free of state control. In Adam's words, by covenant, we respond to God's community-forming power. And with the power of community, we can break through old social structures and participate in making social decisions. If you would think of this then in closing, think of this institution then as a stool built by our ancestors. Please note that it stands on 3 legs. You know, they say a 3-legged stool is the most stable. It stands on a leg called the present, which is our operating fund, a leg called the future, which is our capital fund, and a leg we're calling the forever, which is our endowment. All of us can give to all 3, ensuring that our love and values will live on long after we take our last breath. As I turn 60 and work on getting my ducks in a row, I will consider, I'm not quite where Marlin and Anitra are, but I am, after this week of reflection, going to consider leaving some of what I am left with to All Souls, because I can't think of a better place. For now, I will say, I am forever grateful to have been part of All Souls. I see a bright, bright future for this beloved community. And right now, in the present, I love you. May we all be remembered for and with love. May it be so. Amen.